This is the last day from a long road trip. Reaching my finish line, finding myself walking beside Berlin's wall that America used all its power to bring it down. Eventually, it fell down after President Reagan's speech with his famous words, "Mr. Gorbachev, turn down this wall." President Reagan, an iconic Republican president that have used "Let's make America great again" as his slogan in his 1980 presidential campaign. And after 36 years, another TV star joined the presidential race. Donald Trump used the same slogan, "Let's make America great again," but campaigning on building walls and breaking all political borders. He created a new political line representing the red team, which we can call the new red line. You had a therapy.
I was joking. I was joking.
You were joking?
Yeah.
So it was a joke.
Yeah.
Because I feel that America needs therapy after this.
I think we have too much therapy and not enough put on your big boy pants and get beyond it. So I don't need therapy.
But
the country might need some, though. I don't know. I mean, we probably have too much of it, though. We're fragile now.
Donald Trump was attacking democracy frontally. Donald Trump, who was just a political animal, who did things just because he wanted to.
Can you tell us why?
Because Trump, that's why.
Why? Why Trump?
Oh, I hate Trump. I've always hated Trump, man. All the things that Trump has done. He's rich. He thinks he can use people like objects instead of treating people like humans, man. He's just not a good person. He's always done illegal things. He's spoken badly of people. He's broken the law too many times with too many things like Stormy Daniels, the whole stuff with Ukraine and trying to get information on Joe Biden and withholding funds from them. And then the whole January 6th insurrection, and like, the man's a traitor. Like, fuck Trump. Why not fuck Trump?
The President, Donald Trump, when I see this name.
Very different. Complicated. Flawed in so many ways, but effective in so many ways. It's just is an enigma in a lot of ways.
I've met a lot of politicians here in many states. I don't know why do they speak this harsh about the President Trump. Why do you think they talk about him this way?
Because they're afraid of him.
They're afraid of him.
Exactly. He can find things on them. They're so corrupt.
What do you say about this?
No, nothing. That I just didn't like Trump. I hated him all along.
Do you prefer Trump? For example, in a race between Hillary Clinton and Trump, why would, they have evidence. They show that there is Russian money spent in social media, Facebook, etc. They say that there is cyber attacks on emails and you hear the news. It's not a secret.
My position very simple. All American presidents, they are patriots of the United States, in any case. They never think about Russia more than about the United States.
Why is Trump different? What do you think? What makes him really different?
He's a good guy.
I didn't like him. Not because his politics, because he was mean.
In the Arabian culture, we have a famous quote, الكتاب باين من عنوانه, which means the book content is explained through its title. But here in the West, they say don't judge a book by its cover. Therefore, let's go back to understand from where did this political new red line came from.
Donald Trump, the multi-millionaire real estate developer, is sounding more like a politician these days. Today, he sunk $95,000 into a full-page newspaper ad appearing in many papers criticizing the administration's foreign policy. Are you a Republican, Donald?
I'm a Republican, yes.
So if there were politics, it would be as a Republican?
It would be, I guess, as a Republican, but I don't see that there will be politics.
Last year, criticizing U.S. foreign policy. What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
No doubts that Donald Trump is something different when it comes to the American political world. He's known for going against the flow. He's changed a lot. He is different. And to understand more about his characteristics, we've asked one of his main rivals, Vicente Fox, the president of Mexico, who America had impacted him a lot, not only by sharing borders. His grandfather went against the flow when he emigrated from America to Mexico. Vicente Fox, who was the president of Coca-Cola all over Latin America before entering politics. The reason why he is considered one of Trump's rivals, because he also led the war against Trump's wall, or the Mexican-American wall. Let me say it this way. You come from Germany, Trump comes from Germany originally. Trump came and said, I'm not a new politician. I am from the people. I speak the common language. You did the same. You came with a different thing. You come from a business background. He comes from a business background. Do you think that there is a similarity between you and Trump?
Well, pretty well that you mentioned that, because all of that is true. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure all of that helped him to win. And all of that helped me to win the presidency in Mexico. But at the very end, we human beings have character, formation, beliefs, and that's where we are an absolute contrast each other. If both of us believe in businesses and wealth creation, he has a very aggressive, extremely aggressive way of doing it. And I go more for planning and the soft side of development. So that's a characteristic that is most important for a leader. Believes. What are the things that you believe in? Number two, character. That you know when you're in a storm, you know how to control yourself and control the airplane until you come out of the storm. But character meaning that you don't get afraid, you don't run away, you face the challenge and you overcome it. So I would say the difference between Trump and myself is that. And maybe at the very end, one more, respect to people. He doesn't respect people.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Why I'm saying that the American politics is changing, when I saw the post-election, which is the Republican candidate choice among those 13 or 40, 25 candidates back then.
Who should be the Republican nominee for president in 2016? So this is part of the great American process.
All right, gentlemen, Thank you. Please go to your podiums. That was awkward enough. Let's get you.
Goodness.
Save us and them.
Trump numbers were higher than any numbers before. I mean, his totals, I remember that your numbers weren't bad, but the amount of people that joined that election, new Republicans, as they described them back then.
I have joined the political arena so that the powerful can no longer beat up on people who cannot defend themselves.
Why from both parties there is a fight against Trump, from Republicans and Democratic?
Because he's not part of their establishment and doesn't want to play by their rules. He's an outsider. He wanted to break the establishment and the control that they had.
Nobody knows the system better than me. Which is why I alone can fix it.
In the first debate we had was a Fox debate.
Yeah.
And there were 25 million people that watched it. The second highest number of people ever watching a debate prior to 2016 in a Republican primary, any primary, not just Republican, was 5. So, you know, you have to give him credit for he's a fascinating character. People wanted to watch. They wanted to, you know, see they wanted to see how it was all going to play out, who he was going to insult, what was he going to say. It wasn't necessarily certainly wasn't driven by policy, but there was an entertainment value that politics hasn't had in a long while.
Friends, delegates, and fellow Americans, I humbly and gratefully accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. Together, we will lead our party back to the White House, and we will lead our country back to safety, prosperity, and peace.
First time in the American history, half of America and its intelligence agencies believe that an unexpected presidential candidate is supported by the biggest enemy of the American democracy.
I saw, post-FBI career, I saw a president that represented a national security threat. And that, of course, was Donald Trump, particularly in the 2016 election. The degree to which Russia and the Russian intelligence services helped try to get Trump in office.
The Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans. They have hacked American websites, American accounts of private people, of institutions. Then they have given that information to WikiLeaks for the purpose of putting it on the internet. This has come from the highest levels of the Russian government, clearly from Putin himself, in an effort, as 17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed, to influence our election.
Mr. Ambassador, they're not talking about interest only. They're talking about influence. Influence is very known that Russia interfered. They helped Trump to win.
Yeah. You know, I may say no commentaries, but I think, you know, if this will be truth, I have the national pride, you know, if this will be truth. I could not think that, believe me, it's impossible serious talk about the Russian influence to American election. This, from my point of view, in this case, Americans must say the Russia really great country, because if they could influence to our elections, in this case they have the best IT technology, the best IT professionals, etc., etc. America never says it, you know. How we could, no, be serious, you know.
17 intelligence agencies civilian and military, who have all concluded that these espionage attacks, these cyber attacks, come from the highest levels of the Kremlin, and they are designed to influence our election. I find that deeply disturbing, and I think it's
She
time
has no
you
idea
take a
whether it's
stand,
Russia,
because
China, or anybody
I am
else.
not quoting
She has
myself.
no idea.
I am quoting
Hillary, you have no idea.
17 do you doubt 17
Our
military
country has
and
no idea.
civilian agencies? Well,
Yeah, I
he'd
doubt
rather
it. I doubt
believe
it.
Vladimir Putin than the military and civilian intelligence professionals who are sworn to protect us. I find that just absolutely
She doesn't like Putin because Putin has outsmarted her at every step of the way. Excuse me. Putin has outsmarted her in Syria. He's outsmarted her every step of the way.
Did he try to influence the election? Absolutely. I'm totally convinced of that. The question that you should ask John Brennan and others, because I don't have the answer, is, was it effective?
But the Russians actively interfered to try to help Donald Trump get elected and tried to hurt Hillary Clinton. And so my view is that in some very key battleground states, that the Russians were very surgical in terms of how they targeted certain voters in terms of their views. And I think that as a result of those Russian influence operations, some individuals changed their vote from Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump. Or some Hillary Clinton supporters decided to stay home because they were influenced by Russia's propaganda about Hillary. As well as some individuals decided to come out and vote for Donald Trump because Russia was helping his campaign and putting him in a very positive light.
It wasn't to elect Donald Trump, it was to weaken our democracy and our role in the world.
You said that democracy is under attack, as you said. Do you think that what happened to America during the Trump's era was democracy under attack?
Yes, I think Donald Trump was attacking democracy frontally.
And I have an interview with Governor Bush and asked him about why does, if it's true that Russia interfered in the election, why would they prefer Trump on Hillary? He said Russia wants to do a joke about the American democracy. They want to show the American democracy in the worst shape. How do you comment on that?
I think this is not true.
Undermining our democracy and questioning it protects the tax on people saying that his democracy is illegitimate. So,
and do you mean by that making Trump win will show democracy in a bad form?
That influencing the election would undermine its credibility.
During my time at CIA and the White House, in this century, the CIA has never tried to change the outcome of election. That's a democratic process. And the presidents that I worked for believe that people around the globe should be able to select their own leaders.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh, probably. But it was for the good of the system in order to avoid the communists from taking over. For example, in Europe, in 47, 48, 49, the Greeks and the Italians, we
don't do that now, though? We don't mess around other people's elections,
Only for a very good cause.
Can you do that? Do a Vine video on a former CIA director.
Only for a very good cause in the interest of democracy.
All right, thanks for being here.
All of Donald Trump's political rivals treated his campaign as a joke. They laughed on every statement he gave throughout the race. But when the election came and the result appeared, no one was laughing except the people that supported his campaign.
Mrs. Laura Trump. Hello, Laura Trump.
Amazing. Let me see if it still works even from afar. Oh, H.
There it goes. Well, thank you, Laura Trump, and everybody say hi. Amazing crowd. Love you. See you soon, all right?
Last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country. I hope that he will be a successful president for all Americans. This is not the outcome we wanted or we worked so hard for, and I'm sorry that we did not win this election for the values we share and the vision we hold for our country.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business. Complicated. Thank you very much. I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign. I mean, she fought very hard. Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division. Have to get together. To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people. It's time.
Do you remember your first meeting with President Trump?
I do remember my first meeting with President Trump. I went to New York City to meet with the president when he was vetting candidates for political appointments. And it was insane. It was when he was in Trump Tower in New York, and there were police barricades all around Trump Tower. I was walking in towards Trump Tower, and my phone starts ringing. And it's my mother-in-law from back here in Indiana. And she says, "I see you on TV." Because C-SPAN was literally covering everyone who was going in and out of Trump Tower to decide who was going to be part of the administration. And so I go into Trump Tower, I come up the elevators and I get off, and there is Newt Gingrich and his wife Calista, who eventually was the ambassador to the Vatican. And so that's who I saw immediately when I get off the elevator. So it already starts to help you understand how political this is going to be. I'm going to interview for a health role, and I'm meeting two of the most powerful political people in the United States immediately when I arrive. And then I went in for my interview, and it was President Trump, it was Reince Priebus, his first chief of staff, it was Steve Bannon. And the three of them interviewed me to be Surgeon General of the United States. And I will just never forget that experience because it was so surreal for me. Again, poor black kid, to be able to walk into Trump Tower, to meet with the president-elect of the United States, to be surrounded by these powerful political figures. I still get chills right now when I think about just how far I had to come from my background just to be in a position to speak to the most powerful person in the world.
When Donald Trump was elected, we tended to take America's role in Europe for granted. What Donald Trump then said was, in a way, an eye-opener, a scary eye-opener, when he threatened withdrawing from NATO.
We are following new reports suggesting the President of the United States may want to pull out of NATO. The New York Times reports the president discussed the move with advisors several times over the last year.
He threatened with withdrawing America from Europe for us, that was an extremely worrisome message. And this is, of course, now something which affects our policy considerations in a major way. For the last 70 years, we never really had to think about, so who is going to be the next president? Because they were all our friends.
It's like an employment interview. You're there, you are heading for a new career or a new job. What was the first question, or what was the type of the dialogue there? Was it political? Was it healthy? I can't imagine what might Mr. President Trump be the first question or even the second.
Well, interestingly enough, the first question the president asked me was about vaccines. And he said, how do you feel about vaccines? And so, believe it or not, the first conversation that President Trump and I had was me helping educate him about how vaccines work and why they work. And so what's interesting is many people ask me, how could you work?
And just to clarify this, that wasn't the first day. That was way, way before COVID-19.
That was way before COVID-19.
That was his first question.
That was his first question to me.
Move of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem during the Trump administration, I think, was very, very short-sighted, misguided, and counterproductive to peace.
As soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the United States ambassador to the city Israel as chosen as its capital.
Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
But that was a promise that all presidents before him said.
A lot of them did it for political reasons because it sounded good, but the presidents that I work for realized that it was not the right thing to do. And unfortunately, Donald Trump, who was just a political animal, who did things just because he wanted to, did that. But again, Jerusalem's status, again, by UN Security Council resolution, is supposed to be determined as a result of final status negotiations. And we're a long way from that.
So I held my breath and I did it. And you know what happened? Nothing. Except we did something that should have been done many, many decades ago. And every president violated their promise, their campaign promise, except me.
America defined through the speeches made by President Trump at the time, America defined its own role more like that of an adversary. He said rather negative things about the role of Germany. He said, why do we have all these Mercedeses on Fifth Avenue? Can we not replace that by Chevrolets or, you know, that kind of stuff? And then we had an escalation of tariffs slapped against each other. So the Trump years brought about a kind of an alienation between Europe and the United States.
Today I stand before the United Nations General Assembly to share the extraordinary progress we've made. In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay. America's economy is booming like never before. Since my election, we've added $10 trillion in wealth. The stock market is at an all-time high in history, and jobless claims are at a 50-year low.
We in Europe know that we needed the United States throughout the Cold War. We understand that we needed the United States in the post-Cold War period, beginning in 1990 and still continuing. We believe, rather humbly, that we are not yet capable, we as the European Union, we're not yet capable of actually defending ourselves if ever there was a major threat. We need NATO, we need the United States as the major nuclear power to create the kind of balance of stability that this continent needs. So for us, America has been and continues to be the indispensable power.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers. It has been the formal policy of our country since President Monroe that we reject the interference of foreign nations in this hemisphere and in our own affairs.
I just didn't like Trump. I hated him all along because of he was treated us with great indignity, with great discriminations to us Mexicans. The way he spoke about Mexicans, the way he spoke about the world, that was enough for me to be his enemy number one. And he comes with that wall instead of building a relationship between Mexico and he said, we don't want nothing to do with Mexico. I said, this guy is crazy, he's stupid. And that's when I began to attack him and attack him as hard as I could.
Who won? You said if they want to build the wall, they need to build it with their money.
No.
So who won? He said that Mexican will pay. So who won?
No, U.S. taxpayers paid for it. U.S. taxpayers paid for it. Mexico didn't pay for that fucking wall. No doubt.
When during the campaign, I would say Mexico is going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this and I never meant they're going to write out a check. I said they're going to pay for it. They are. They are paying for it with the incredible deal we made called the United States, Mexico, and Canada USMCA deal. It's a trade deal. It has to be approved by Congress. It probably will be, other than maybe they even hold that up because they want to have, they want to do as much harm as they can, only because of the 2020 presidential election. So the really great trade deal we just made, Congress has to approve the deal.
Many people ask me what the president is like behind the scenes. He's exactly what you see on TV. He very much is the same person who you see. There's not a lot fake about him. And what's interesting is I believe a lot of people thought he was going to change when he became president of the United States, but he was true to what he had been and what he said he was going to do. Now, that said, I was impressed that he did ask me health questions when he was interviewing me to be Surgeon General of the United States. And it gave me at least some degree of confidence that I might have continued access to him and that he might feel comfortable coming to me if and when he had health questions.
I think it's weaker now that Biden's in place. Look at what happened in Afghanistan. Look what's happening worldwide. The rest of the world respected us and respected the President Trump in office. They didn't want to mess with him because he displayed power.
Do you think that they attacked you this way because you're in the administration of Trump?
Yes, absolutely. I think absolutely there are many people out there who will use any opportunity they can to attack Trump. And they will attack anyone who is associated with Trump, and they will attack any statement that that person makes as a way to attack that person, as a way to attack Trump. And so that absolutely is happening, and that's, again, the challenge of being a doctor in an incredibly political climate. But what I try to do is always bring it back to the science, and I say to people, look, here's what the data shows now. Here's what the data showed then. Here's why we made those statements then, and here's why we're saying what we're saying now.
In the whole period, Trump gave jobs to black people more than no one else, right?
Jobs to every American more than everybody else.
Yeah, but especially for African Americans.
Latinos and Hispanics, black Americans, every race was being successful under President Trump.
Then why don't the media, why do the media highlight this?
The media's like President Trump?
Yes.
Because he doesn't fall into their thing. He doesn't bow to what they want.
Well, it's easier to be a parent this morning. It's easier to be a dad. It's easier to tell your kids character matters. It matters. Telling the truth matters. Being a good person matters.
He actually was, the country was never stronger until the day COVID came, and when he was in office. And only people that were upset were people who didn't like reading his tweets. And if your biggest problem in the world with a president who's making everything in the country great, making everyone have jobs and giving strength across the world, well, you don't like his tweets, it just tells you we're trying to find an excuse not to like him. That's identity politics. That's like not liking a person for who they are. He was doing great things as a president.
2020 was a close presidential race, but also a very special race, even though it was during the pandemic. Trump and Biden broke all records. Trump and his supporters didn't believe they lost. Until this moment, many believe that Biden didn't win.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us.
Many believe that COVID was one of the main reasons why Trump lost.
Yeah. You know, Joe Biden won, I think, because he was not Trump. Trump could have won had he touted the benefits of, first of all, touted his record, because there were many things that were done at warp speed that had never been done before in his administration. But he wasn't effective you remember when I said I lost in 1994 because I didn't show my heart? He didn't connect with people during, really traumatic times for a lot of families. He could have easily done it. He could have worn a mask at the, not crazy wearing masks, but in appropriate settings.
Not to sit in a basement, but at least to wear a mask.
Well, or in settings where the CDC suggested that until further research came that it was appropriate to do so. He could have advocated more social distancing, and he could have given people hope that the vaccine was on its way, because it was. And he could have just shown his heart. Had he done it, he would have won. I'm totally convinced of that.
Well, I do agree that Joe Biden was elected to bring people together. I think the pandemic and the politics are still converging to drive us apart. And I've said this constantly. Joe Biden recently talked about how the pandemic was the fault of the unvaccinated. And I think that is a framing that is not helpful. I think we need to understand that there are many people out there who still have legitimate questions and legitimate concerns, and we don't want to make them the enemy.
There's a huge problem in the United States with polarization and division in our country. It played out on January 6th at the US Capitol. A large part of that division involves people feeling disenfranchised from the rest of society. A sense that the America that I grew up in, the America that I was a part of and participated in, the economy that I participated in, isn't here anymore. People talk a different language. They look different. They speak computer programming. I don't know what's going on. The world is way too complicated. I'm going to do something that makes me feel affirmed. And what happens from a security standpoint when that happens is people get very bitter and very angry and want to take matters into their own hands, almost understandable. And so to survive, they do things, including violence.
January 6th was all about election integrity. That's it. 7 states had dual slates of electors that day, 3 of which instructed the President of the Senate, then VP Pence, disregard the initial slate we sent for reason of fraud and irregularities and be guided by the subsequent slate, one of which was Arizona. They have now completed audits. Let's see if the results of those audits prove there was fraud and other irregularities to a sufficient amount to cancel the supposed 10,000 vote lead statewide in Arizona. What I'm seeing so far is there's about 241,000 questionable ballots just in Maricopa County. That hasn't been released yet. Let's all wait and see. I say to everybody, you go to a ball game. Was the runner tied at first, or did the ball beat him there? The two managers don't come out on the pitching mound and punch it out. You go to the instant replay. Boom. If I'm playing you in poker and I lay down 4 aces, you tell me you have a royal flush, but you won't let me see your cards.
What about all the cases that were...
So in an election, the verification process are legally allowed audits that are able to happen for 22 months following any federal election. Dick Nixon in '72 crushed the Democrats. They thought he cheated. They pushed legislation and made this into a law, federal election audit law. 22 months after any federal election, outside companies can do an audit. It's nonpartisan, it's unbiased, it's science-based, it's forensic, it's transparent, it's peer-reviewable. It's the instant replay of the ballgame.
Thank you for your service and thank you for talking.
God bless you.
It's a blemish on our country for sure. Whether it's an insurrection or not, and I think the majority of the people that broke into the Capitol were there for a lot of reasons. They weren't there to overturn the government or overturn the election, but some were there to do it. And they should be punished, and they are being punished. And there should be zero tolerance for that.
The Congress was going to ratify the Electoral College vote. That's how we transition power. They wanted to stop that. That's our system.
The idea that you would have a fortified Capitol, barbed wire around the United States Capitol, the People's House, really the center of our democracy, is deeply troubling to me. And thankfully, those barriers are going down now, and we should learn from these lessons and make sure that it never happens again.
For decades, as you pointed out, I participated in the Munich Security Conference as a U.S. Senator, joining my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to affirm the importance of the transatlantic partnership. 3 times as Vice President of the United States, including delivering the first international foreign policy address of the Obama-Biden administration in the first months we were in office. And 2 years ago, as you pointed out, when I last spoke in Munich, I was a private citizen. I was a professor, not an elected official. But I said at that time, we will be back. And I'm a man of my word. America is back. I speak today as President of the United States at the very start of my administration, and I'm sending a clear message to the world. America is back.
America's back. What do you think he meant by that phrase?
When Joe Biden said, we're back, for us that was a most welcome announcement that the indispensable power is back with us, and we can trust them again, and we can work with them, and they will not be withdrawing their military presence from Europe either, which has been an important element in this global or in this regional balance of power, including military power.
I trust people that are given the proper information to make the right choice. And if they don't, they pay the consequences in the next election. They change. You look at the swings back and forth in American politics. President Biden won a pretty big victory in terms of the popular vote. He certainly won. He won the same number of electoral votes as President Trump did against Hillary Clinton. In 2022, this is speculation, but I would think that the Democrats are going to suffer a big defeat.
Good evening. As we come on the air tonight, there is breaking news about the balance of political power in this country. 8 days after the midterm elections, NBC News is now projecting that the House of Representatives will shift to Republican control following a series of GOP wins in House races across the country. This will create a divided government, with Democrats retaining control of the Senate, so a split Congress over the next 2 years of the Biden administration.
Because people said, well, we didn't vote for him to abandon Afghanistan the way he did. We didn't vote for him to have an uncontrolled border. I don't like high inflation. Some of this stuff the president's responsible for, some of it isn't, but presidents normally get the blame no matter what. So that'll have an impact on the election.
I worked for 6 presidents, from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama. And I felt that even though all of those presidents had different people influencing them, I believe that they always tried to make their policy decisions in terms of what they believed was in the best interests of the United States and the best interests of world peace and security.
If you had an advice to Donald Trump, would you advise him to go to election in 2024 or to stop there as a friend?
As a friend and as a doctor, as a person, as a citizen, I believe that America really ultimately does get it right through the electoral process in the long run. We have ups and downs and the pendulum swings back and forth. And I actually personally think it is un-American for me to discourage anyone from participating in the process. So I would say to him and to anyone else, if you have something to say, make your argument to the American people and let the American people decide.
It's an invasion of America. Streets flooded with poison, killing millions. Enemies and tyrants on opposite sides of the globe laugh at us. Wars threaten us. The threat of nuclear annihilation, once forgotten, is now real again. America's weakness has become their strength. The global elitists who send your kids to war, who tell you a woman is a man and a man is a woman, who teach your children their country, their faith, their beliefs are a lie. They have corrupted every facet of American government, weaponized it against you. While they watch our cities burn and violent crime skyrocket, you and your families pay the price. Out of control inflation, an economy wrecked, a nation in decline. This is Joe Biden's America, failing, weak. But one man, one movement can change all that for us. Put America, the middle class, first, and put the globalists, the elitist, and the corrupt in their place. Bring back pride and the American dream to let the world know, don't mess with us. One man focused on the true owners of this great land. One movement focused on the true priorities. Make America great for us again.
Most likely, 2024 will be a replay of 2020.
Here's a question for you. Just how far are the radical left and inside the Beltway bandits willing to go to stop him? They all know they hate him for winning the fight to protect life, for exposing their deep state, for draining their precious swamp. And they already know he'll crush Biden. So like a pack of rabid wolves, they attack. So let's impeach him. Let's get tainted radical left prosecutors to charge him. Let's conspire with Hillary and the FBI with fake stories about him. All to distract from Biden's incompetence, weakness, and money-grabbing corruption. But here's the thing, he'll never blink. That's called having the courage of your convictions. And it's why he's our president.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
So, is America going to pick the red line? Or the blues will win again?
Freedom, personal freedom, is fundamental to who we are as Americans. There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred. That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But you know, around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you've paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what healthcare decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election. Because I know America. I know we're good and decent people. I know we're still a country that believes in honesty and respect and treating each other with dignity. That we're a nation where we give hate no safe harbor. We believe that everyone is equal, that everyone should be given a fair shot to succeed in this country. Thank you for choosing us. Every generation of Americans has faced a moment when they have to defend democracy. Stand up for our personal freedom. Stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights. And this is our moment.
We, the people, will not decide.
So if you're with me, go to joebiden.com and sign up. Let's finish this job. I know we can. Because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
We reached our last day here in the American roadmap. We've been from coast to coast. Today is the 20th of September, the last day of long days between different states. We saw a lot in our eyes. We saw diversity. We saw different religions, different beliefs. We saw homeless. We saw governors. We saw politicians, movie makers. We've met media all over the place. But the common thing is that everyone here believes that they have the right to have a voice. Some of them believe that their voice is heard, some of them don't. We saw different things in every single state. We smelled even different smells. For example, here I'm smelling marijuana. We saw different people from all sectors. Just to understand or to look for certain answers. We had huge questions throughout the process. I'm not here to claim that I have the answers, but I hope we saw the American roadmap.